What is the biggest challenge throughout your career?
I quit McKinsey at the worst possible time. I exited when nobody was hiring. It was the summer 2008 Olympics. And then the financial crisis hit when multinationals certainly weren't hiring. And so I pretty much had to brave the market on my own. And a friend ended up connecting me to my next role and basically saved me. When things look bleak, your network can really help.
Welcome to Powerhouse. We're on the streets of New York. Joining us today is Meagan Dietz. She is a COO, advisor, and board member. Thanks for joining us, Meagan.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Joyce. I'm so thrilled to be here, and I'm so thrilled what you're doing for more women and their career growth.
Thank you. So excited to talk to you. You have a great career. So maybe first start with your journey and how you got to today.
Yeah, sure. So I became, really passionate and interested in learning about China through Chinese Ink Art. And I started looking for opportunities. First, I was a Rotary Scholar in Sweden. So I studied abroad my junior year of high school. And then for my university program, I did an international studies degree, which gave me some time, a foundation and time to figure out like an international career.
Awesome. What did you do right after studying?
I studied at University of Washington, Seattle, and then I moved to New York. And New York is just a great place for anybody looking for big opportunities. New York's a great place to get started. I highly recommend it. And I met a recruiter who's interviewing for McKinsey, and she really recommended McKinsey at the time was a really small firm. So they were like 5,000 people. Today, they're supposedly like 40,000. So it's a very different beast. But what's nice about management consulting is it gives you exposure to lots of different functional and industry areas. And I really loved basically having a broad set of options to figure out my career.
Awesome. And is that the jobs that brought you to Asia and China?
Exactly. I grew up in McKinsey. So I was a research analyst specialist, and McKinsey sponsored my MBA. I did the dual London Columbia Business School global program where there's a China component. And when I was in China, I had already started building kind of as a little small entrepreneurial area in McKinsey. I'd already started building a practice area. Part of that practice area on intellectual property was extended into China. I did some project work in business school and then ended up working with a bunch of partners and teams on intellectual property protection, especially in China where there's no enforcement. And effectively that becomes strategies for building brand loyalty through services.
What's the next move after McKinsey?
I exited McKinsey at possibly the worst time. In terms of making your own career, it would definitely fall under. So I exited McKinsey in June of 2008. The crisis hit in September of 2008. So I had a year to prepare for my exit. So I switched to a part-time program where I studied Mandarin and then also worked. And I'm forever grateful to McKinsey for that transition. And this is a really important lesson learned. Thinking about a transition, use your network, especially in crisis. So a friend of mine made an introduction to the then MD of Cushman & Wakefield, and I was able to transition into a consulting services role for a large real estate services company.
Amazing. And so you were able to do that for a few years. What are the other kind of challenges, especially working in such a large corporate, both in McKinsey and Cushman & Wakefield?
Sometimes things don't go to plan, and you can't really plan for your career.
Right.
When I was exiting McKinsey, I had reached out to the former CEO of Godiva, and I was like, you guys should be here. You're such a massive opportunity. And he wrote me back, and he's like, you're right. This isn't the right time for us, but let's keep in touch and basically come back to me in a year. I did. And effectively what put into process was, about a 3 to 6 month interview with head of international for Godiva. And then I joined them basically 3 months later as their head of international.
Wow. So it's still a pretty lengthy interview process, so 3 to 6 months. That's amazing that you kept with that contact. I mean, you basically cold call the company initially for another opportunity, but then you kept in touch and, followed on the lead and really kind of brought it to another direction. So that's amazing.
I'd fully recommend for any, again, of your listeners who are, ready for an explosive career, don't be shy.
Right.
That cold email. So, if you send out 20 cold emails, if the one that responds, supports you, then you can have this, amazing experience, which for me went from about 34 million at the time for APAC to over 250 million in sales, and mainly through opening new markets. So with our APAC team and sponsorship from international, we opened South Korea, Thailand, and then of course we drove the China business, again with parent support from 3 shops to over 100 shops. And then, I helped the team open wholesale as well as e-commerce.
Wow, that's amazing. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about like growing a business.
Yeah.
So that's pertaining to anyone that's working corporate or want to start their own business. What are the main strategies, right? Going from 2 times to multiple times the business.
I'd say as soon as possible with leadership support, try to own a business unit. So if you don't own the full P&L, just start managing people, doing business planning, figuring out, basics around like, how the business is structured, how it runs, and really working towards understanding like business profitability. That would be like the number one. And then, through your networks, again, I fully recommend like working towards either it's public or private, or even if you're an entrepreneur, like working with, VCs or private investors to figure out a profitability model. That basically would be my recommendation.
Amazing. And how long were you in that role?
So I shifted from Godiva, and this is like important for like the motherhood and family part of your story,
Right.
and, especially for your listeners. We made a move from this, at this point, we were in Beijing, Shanghai, and then made a move to Hong Kong because Hong Kong is known as like this incredible place for families. As a smaller city, the Hong Kong government really supports, middle class and upward families so that both mothers and fathers can work and have like full careers. And so like for me, we moved to Hong Kong mainly for family, but I also had an opportunity to run a small business unit and then transition that into a full-time chief operating officer role, with a friend.
That's amazing. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about that. How do you transition to that role, and also business expanding to international markets or working from one market to another? How do you navigate that?
I give full kudos to my former CEO and partner, Joanne Chow. So she trusted me enough to like make me her maternity cover as her CEO, and she trusted me enough to like help her rebrand a lifestyle, like what she envisioned as a portfolio of brands. And, together, I would say over a year, we scoped what that could look like. She and I pitched essentially to grow a Hong Kong-based distribution business to, a full China business. She and I opened China for one of our brands. I supported her accelerator, which also helped support 2 fashion brands and a market entry into China.
Oh, that's amazing. So much going on in between. What are like maybe 1 or 2 stories like that you're opening up and adding accelerators? Got to be kind of fun stories in there.
Yeah, so exciting. So we learned so much from that experience. I think, first and foremost for like premium luxury brands, like figuring out, again, the financial part. So figuring out how you're going to fund it. In our case, working with banks, working with the family office to help us figure out, again, our P&L and, how to fund that expansion. For us, for our lifestyle brand, we used our wholesale revenues in addition to our bank financing to help fund our expansion.
And then you were able to expand it to Hong Kong, because then you moved to Hong Kong, based there. But also it's going Asia primarily.
When we had Matter of Design, our portfolio of PE and family office backed brands, we were primarily focused on Greater China, so China market and Hong Kong.
And China market must have grown so much in the past 10, 15 years. And you've seen like the early phase to now. What are some of the biggest
learnings?
Changes?
So many. I'd say like in the last 5 years, especially like when we were there, Chinese customers have become so sophisticated, especially for a higher end product. So, we were focused in basically 3 major cities. We were focused in Shanghai, Beijing, and Guangzhou. And we were really focused initially on Shanghai. It's a very international city. The customers there are very sophisticated. And we really worked with local influencers, local celebrities on representing the brand online. And we worked with local developers on the best experience that a customer could have, some of the very premium department stores and retail locations.
Right. So I think with the marketing strategy, it must have kind of moved with the times as well. And you mentioned with influencers. So maybe talk a little bit more about that, how important it is to be working with the right partner and influencers.
Yeah, super critical for us. We work with local agencies in China, and they were like by invite only agencies. Like you only could work with them, if you knew of a friend of a friend. It's very like guanxi, it's very relationship based.
Yep.
And those, agencies essentially they were very edgy. So our brands, especially Templa, was a very edgy brand. They're a Moncler competitor, but very fashion forward, like very Vivienne Westwood. And essentially the social media and the agencies were really important in finding the edgy influencers and the edgy celebrities. And we would do product donation, or basically we would give them product and, let them style it and make it like China cool.
Very cool. Yeah. So I have to make sure you get the right partner with the style as well, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And so your different different careers. Just wondering if there's a specific like mentor. Yeah, what are your advice in terms of someone that's starting out and maybe switching career, going up the ladder, how to find a mentorship?
Most critical is you find somebody who like pound the table for you. If you're in a structured corporate environment right now, make sure you like gravitate and keep on asking to work or keep on working with people you love to work with. Then when it comes down to like asking a partner about you, they can 100% vouch for you, pound the table for you when it comes to review period. I would also say like, leverage your entire network for recognition. So like when somebody says like, why would you go to Joyce? They would say, oh, because she's amazing at supporting, women entrepreneurs or women in business. Or, for me at McKinsey and beyond, why would you work with Meagan? Like, oh, she's incredible for entrepreneurs. She's incredible for luxury lifestyle or consumer brands. So, basically building your brand in whatever, if it's corporate or entrepreneurial construct, like make sure people understand, like, why do they go to you?
And is it for you, was it quite organic in terms of meeting a right person or mentor to work together? Or if someone's looking for a mentor, what are the kind of steps towards that?
Yeah, I mean, mentors come in so many different ways. Like Joanne was my partner and friend. And in the end, became a really important part of my life. First, I was her maternity cover and she trusted me.
Right.
And then together we built something incredible. But then I've also had like incredible partner mentors at McKinsey, like my APAC head at Godiva. I'll forever remember like being on a call with him. And, he reflected back like you made an impression even during the interview that you understood the market and, you had full faith in the brand growth.
Amazing. Well, with so many different types of industry and different markets, you must meet so many different people, obviously, but it is more male-dominated industry. Do you run across any major challenges and how do you overcome that?
It's so hard. I think anybody who's worked at a big company, especially where it's male dominated, there may not be a culture to support women. Yeah. And so I would just encourage if you're working where women either are not supported or, maybe there are pockets, not the whole company, maybe there are pockets where you're just not given any opportunities. I would, strongly suggest either work with your board for any support. If you don't have a board who can support you, then just do your best to shine. And if you still don't have, recognition or support, or if people are actively putting you down or creating like female, like leadership, political issues, then I fully recommend exiting and like working on an exit plan. You don't have to do it immediately, like you can plan for it. But, I recommend like building a war chest so that you can have some time to transition and like find what's right.
Right. You recently started your consultancy and it's focused more on sustainability. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I initially approached sustainability from a cost savings perspective. I could see clearly that we were shipping things like halfway around the world and the products had a very beautiful like craftsmanship, like from India or from Europe. However, I also know the China market really well. And, China manufacturing is some of the best in the world. And so, I tried to make the case for sustainability through a cost savings lens. Like if we make it in China for China, we'll save somewhere between 3 to 5% in shipping supply chain costs. And this is a sustainability angle, you reduce your carbon footprint. I've always been passionate about the environment, but that was my, I'd say, business entry into sustainability. And a lot of people still look at sustainability from a cost savings. I think I have become more purposeful in the last 2 years, wanting to support more ventures, especially female founder ventures in sustainability. And that can be everything from what Repurpose is doing by creating household plant-based fiber products to replace plastic. And, there are other really amazing, I'm an advisor with STVC. They require that a founding members board is, female. And I love supporting like women in that group, helping them through their business planning.
Right. And you also mentioned you're in the board and you're also a board member for a couple of companies. Can you explain a bit more about that process as well and how do you come across and any advice for those who are maybe thinking about that type of role?
So I'm on 2 nonprofit boards. I'm on the Columbia Business School has a women's circle. So the purpose of the Women's Circle board is to support Columbia women in their career, whatever it may be. It could be transitions. It could be helping make introductions to the right people. And with the London Business School board that I'm on for sustainability, it's all about networking and building networks. And I would say how to get on those boards, like think of it as each part of your career as like a building block.
Yep.
So for me personally, it would be like consulting and then international in China, APAC expansion, and then sustainability. And in my case, my like piece of the puzzle, like it ends up being a very niche reason why you get on boards. In my case, it was because I had international and the sustainability part, and they were looking for somebody who could represent international sustainability in the US market, which at the moment is somewhat under attack.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it is the right timing and just kind of accumulation of all the experiences and just kind of finding the right spot for your skills. But for those who are really kind of wanting to, I think first build their own skill set, of course, be the leader in the industry, and then kind of identify certain organizations that may be the role that you want to aspire to. And I guess that's kind of wait and see if there's an opportunity to get in.
In my experience, at least through my business schools, a lot of board positions open up probably later career, but of course, like Chelsea Clinton, who's also ex-McKinsey, like she's been on boards, basically she has a sphere of influence, right? And she's been hired, to influence. So if you have an opportunity to influence, you can absolutely get on boards.
Right. That makes sense. In addition to nonprofit boards, if someone's looking to kind of look at different
paid boards,
type of opportunity, what else is there?
Friends of mine who are on paid boards, many of them were in senior leadership roles at publicly listed companies. And so I'm not saying like you can't get on a paid board if you're not at public listed companies, but that seems to be like the general trajectory. Again, most recruiters who recruit for boards, they're looking for people with very niche skill set. So for me, hypothetically, it could be like a board really wants somebody with international consumer goods experience.
Right. And having that sustainability angle as well.
Potentially, sustainability.
But well, speaking of international, I mean, I want to dwell more into that because you have, gone full circle as well. Like you went to, China, you went to Hong Kong, you expanded in Asia, but now based in New York. What are the key lessons for someone to look into if they want to expand in different markets?
Yeah. From a curiosity perspective and a network perspective, if you're somebody interested in an international career or being bridge talent, so where maybe you grew up in China or Hong Kong, you went to school in the US or Australia or the UK, there are still lots of opportunities to grow either multinational companies, either in very senior leadership roles in APAC. There are lots of opportunities here, even as it's just harder if you're not a US citizen or have a green card. But again, I think there's still lots of very exciting returnee options, both, in China and Hong Kong to, again, help be bridge talent between West and East.
So with all the different steps, I always ask this question to each interviewee, what is your main traits that brought you to today's success?
There are so many. I'd say one of the biggest traits that led me to my point now is my network and leveraging my network. And I'm an extrovert, but I'm not always the one, when they do node analysis and they see who basically talked to everyone in the room over 1 hour time period.
Yeah.
I definitely like to go deep with a smaller group, but then I go deep enough that I can ask for introductions from the people that I met. So however your personality fits with a room, leverage your network as much as possible and be curious.
Amazing. Yeah, that always help. And from your stories also help in terms of unexpected areas as well, right? So you may not be looking for something, but that opportunity comes to you because you're able to have different networks and be able to show your skill set in certain roles and they see you in a different role. That's amazing.
I think there's a quote life happens when you don't plan it.
For sure. Just have to be ready to take that opportunity as well, right? And kind of go with it.
Sometimes you don't know where your next opportunity will come from, but as long as you leave yourself open and basically put some intention and something of a plan forward, you give people an opportunity to help you.
Yeah. And you touched upon it a little earlier. You have 2 kids.
Yeah.
So how do you balance home life and work life?
It's really hard. This is somewhat controversial, but there's this whole Sheryl Sandberg.
Yep.
But she has a lot of very wealthy people have extraordinary resources and those people don't have those resources. So unless you have, a company that has daycare or unless you're very wealthy, I think it's very hard in the US. And I'm forever grateful, for my experience in Hong Kong where the government supports families.
Amazing. Yeah. In addition to balancing home and work, is there any routine that you keep up just to make sure you're on the top of your game?
I've always loved sports. So I've played some intramural sports. I've always loved exercise. And so in Hong Kong, I did dragon boat racing. Yeah. And then here, I just do circuit training. Exercise makes me so happy. And then also seeing friends. I love, spending time with friends and catching up. It makes me feel grounded in addition to my family.
Amazing. Do you have a certain time for your exercise?
Really, anytime I can squeeze it out.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Just curious, because some people are like, oh, morning is the best and maybe afternoon. And
No, it is the best. But like, if you had, sometimes I work with Asia clients and, that we're on the phone like at 8 a.m., which 8 p.m. in Hong Kong. Yeah.
All right. So, and before we wrap, what's one fun fact about yourself that others may not know?
I am an advanced open water diver. I did my PADI certification in Thailand on a liveaboard.
Wow.
I know, like scuba diving is like my favorite thing to do in the world.
Amazing. What's the latest trip that you've done diving?
I went down to Cozumel, which is Mexico, with some friends, and we did a fun like bunch of boat trips, basically.
Awesome. Well, I love diving too. I haven't done it in a while, but it's very nice when you're in that environment. It feels so relaxing.
Yeah, Asia diving is like some of the best. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.